Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed faculty, proud families, and, most importantly, dear graduates, it's a great privilege to be here with you today to celebrate this defining moment in your lives. Let me begin with a story. When my father was just 15 years old, he left school, walked down the main street of Coffs Harbour, a small town on the east coast of Australia, and knocked on shop doors asking, "Do you have a job for me?" At the local bakery, they said yes. He started work the very next day. That job, baking bread, would be the one and only career he ever had until the day he passed away, more than 40 years later. My father never used a computer, never posted on Facebook, never touched the internet. By the time he was 50, he was already physically stiff, mentally fixed in routine, and hadn't learned a significant new skill for many years. How do I know that story about my father? When I was about 15, around the early 1980s, when my father was in a cranky mood, he'd sometimes tell me to get out and get a job, just like he had. And he'd tell me that story again. But the world had already changed, and I sure didn't want to be a baker. Still, to his credit, my father helped me financially to go through university. Eventually, I got my first real full-time job when I was 24, after I'd spent 5 years at university with a gap year. But that was a different time. Today, the world you're entering is even more transformed. Faster, more fluid, more uncertain. Yes, a 15-year-old might still get a menial job, but staying in it for life, not a chance. That era has gone. The career you think you're preparing for today may not even exist in 10 years. Or it might exist, but in a totally different form. AI is making sure of that. But this is not a reason to be discouraged. It's a reason to be ready and willing. I'm a practicing futurist. Part of my work is to understand trends and emerging developments, patterns that shape the world. And we're in the middle of a convergence of major shifts. But here's the deeper truth. Trends won't give you meaning. They won't tell you who you are. They're like weather patterns. You can respond to them, but you can't control them. Still, you don't have to be swept away by them. And no trend goes on forever. When I was a teenager, the fax machine, Tuanzhenji, was a miracle of communication. It seemed like the future. Today, you'll only find them in museums. Now you know I've been in China a long time. I know the Chinese word for fax. If your dream job in 1985 was to fix fax machines, that might have made sense. In 2025, just know, unless you work in that museum. So yes, learn about trends, ride them, but don't worship them. So, what do we do in a time of overwhelming change? One suggestion: master your own mind first. Technology is exciting, yes, but it's not enough. We also need to be present to ourselves, to others, to the moment we're in. Immersive technologies, Apple Vision Pro, Meta's VR platforms, personal AI avatars are already transforming how we work, shop, socialize, and think. But here's my prediction. In a hyper-connected future, your ability to disconnect, to reclaim your attention, will be perhaps your most important life skill. Let me say that again. Minding your attention is arguably the most important life skill you can develop. Because capturing your attention makes other people money, namely online influencers and big tech companies. So, you'll need to know when to say no, not just to others, but to your devices, your apps, your distractions. And how can you know what to say no to if you don't know what to say yes to? Distraction is only a meaningful concept if there is something more meaningful that you are being distracted from. Otherwise, why care where your mind is? That's why I recommend you develop a self-awareness practice. It doesn't have to be formal. It could be mindfulness meditation, Tai Chi, painting, walking by the sea, or just looking up at the stars. These practices help you choose where to place your attention rather than letting big tech decide. Studies show that moments of wonder and awe, like sunsets or music, don't just feel good. They expand our peripheral vision. They help us see possibilities, and they're deeply linked to hope for the future. That's science. But to experience that expansion of mind, of self, you need to look up from your screen. So every day, at least once, put down the phone, go outside, breathe deeply, and remember, the world is bigger than that screen in your pocket. And so are you. Now to the heart of my talk, Pervasive Learning. This is the ability to learn in every context, formally and informally, at work, at home, in relationships, in regard to mental and physical well-being, in failure and in success. And I believe it's one of the most vital skill sets you'll need in your future. Why? Because many of the most important things you'll need to know don't exist yet. 20 years ago, no one talked about jobs like prompt engineer, virtual fashion designer, or AI ethicist. Now they exist. And many more new jobs are coming. So, the degree you receive today is just the beginning of your education. What you've learned here at CGT, at ByteZH, is a foundation, not a final destination. For example, over the last year, I've seen how AI platforms like DeepThink are transforming how students approach writing and studying. When ChatGPT 3.5 came out in 2022, only a few students used it. But now, everyone is. And these tools are amazing if you use them wisely. So, my advice, use AI as a wise partner, not as a teacher who just wants you to spit out the right answer. Let these machines support your learning and your wisdom, but don't let them replace your thinking, your mind, your soul. After all, what happens when the power goes out? Or when you're solving a problem with real people and where it isn't possible or wise to use a device? Here's another prediction, one that's already a trend. More schools will likely assess students in real-world conditions, putting students in device-free spaces where they have to solve problems. And big companies like Google and Apple already test job candidates in unconventional ways. So don't be surprised if you show up for an interview and your possible future employer hits you with a test. No AI allowed. You've been warned. In this context, your ability to function in the analog world, to speak, listen, collaborate, take initiative, will become a competitive advantage. These soft skills are becoming core skills. So don't give your power away to the machines. Let's be honest. The future is uncertain, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. But the zone of discomfort is also where all personal growth happens. Every time you start something new, a job, a relationship, a skill, you'll feel incompetent. That's normal. What matters is what you do next. Learning is not about avoiding failure. It's about moving through it. There's a phrase I like, all knowing follows not knowing. All competence begins in non-competence. You've got to be willing to be a beginner. So cultivate self-belief. Not the shallow kind based on achievements, but the deep kind that says, even if I don't know, I can learn. Science backs this. Your brain remains neuroplastic well into old age. You can change if you feed your mind new challenges, habits, ways of being. But your journey won't be just intellectual, it'll be emotional, spiritual too. We live in an anxious age. Global rates of anxiety and depression are rising, especially among young people. That means you, not me of course. Research shows platforms like TikTok and Instagram can magnify insecurities, distort attention, and disrupt developing brains. We may one day look back on smartphones the way we now see smoking in the 1970s. Everyone did it, it seemed normal. But over time, we saw the harm. That doesn't mean abandoning tech. It means learning to use it wisely. What I call a conscious relationship with technology. And beyond that, you'll need resilience because things will go wrong. Guaranteed. Learn to manage stress, nurture relationships, admit your flaws, forgive yourself. These are not soft skills. They are life skills. And don't wait for approval before you begin your dream. Sometimes there won't be anyone to cheer you on. You'll have to be your own source of motivation. Let's talk about risk. In many places, including China, young people are staying closer to home. Geographically, emotionally, ideologically. The COVID era played a role here. The world feels risky, so we seek safety first. But too much safety creates stagnation. We stop growing. Taking risks, applying for a job you're unsure of, starting a project, moving cities, asking an attractive person for a date, is how you grow. It's how you shape your future, not just react to it. That's why I believe in vision. Trends show you what's happening. Vision shows you what matters. Your vision doesn't have to change the world, but it should reflect your values, what you love, the life you want. That vision will be your compass in a chaotic world. Trends will shift, jobs will change, but values, knowing who you are, will guide you. So, let me leave you with this. Imagine we print out everything you know on A4 paper. Your knowledge, skills, memories, and stack it to your left. That pile of paper might be as tall as you. Pretty impressive. Now imagine printing out everything you don't know and stacking it to your right. That's not an impersonation of Elon Musk, by the way. That stack would tower over the tallest building on Earth. Maybe it would never end. Of course, in my wife's case, the left side would be infinite. She knows everything. That huge amount of not knowing is humbling. But it's also thrilling, because it means your journey is only just beginning. Graduates, the future is not just something that happens to you, it's something you help create through your choices, your courage, your commitment to keep learning. So go out there, stay curious, stay open, stay kind, be adventurous, and remember, the most important thing you can learn is how to keep learning. Congratulations on your graduation, and thank you.